Dear Commissioner Breton, dear participants and attendees, dear cluster members, partners and friends, it is my great pleasure and honor to extend to you all a very warm welcome to our meeting today, an open discussion on clusters for next EU generation. Please join me in welcoming our valuable guest, Commissioner Thierry Breton, for the opening remarks and official start of the event. Dear Commissioner Breton, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you to each of you, and it's a really great pleasure to be with you today to speak about your cluster, and I'm really delighted to be here to thank each of you for everything you have done during the crisis, and I will come back in few minutes of this. Because obviously, during this extremely difficult period, where, needless to say, everybody has been caught by surprise, industrial clusters have demonstrated a capacity to react extremely quickly. It was, I think, the appropriate level where to react during this COVID-19 crisis. And of course, following our informal call for action, you remember that you have mobilized over 1,100 offers from 3D printing companies for medical supplies, such as masks, of course, ventilators, in less than 1 week, and dispatched locally to hospitals. And definitely, I would like to sincerely thank each of you for that. It has been extremely appreciated, and I keep telling that when I'm informed, when I am asked how EU reacted during the crisis. So I take this example to demonstrate how we have been able, and thanks to you, to react extremely quickly. And to tell you the truth, I will not hesitate to say better than any other continent. Better than China. We have reacted based on solidarity, thanks to our values, obviously, and this is also unfortunate, better than the US. So yes, we could be proud of that. This is thanks to you, and I really wanted to highlight. One word, if you allow me, on the industrial ecosystems that we have put in place in the Commission and in my DG GROW, to help me and to help us to follow the progresses of our industrial and economical landscape within the whole single market. So you know that we proposed to focus on 14 industrial ecosystems to leaping forward rather than staying in the past. They represent 90% of the EU business value added, where new business models and innovation uptake is needed. And the ecosystem approach is not too far, by the way, from the cluster, but of course it is intra single market, helps us to identify the repair and the investment need during the crisis. Of course, a cluster can contribute and will contribute to the transformation of our continent and ecosystems. And of course, you all know that: green, digital, and resilient. It seems to me that you could help support the recovery in industrial ecosystems in many ways. First, improving resilience. And of course, when I say that, it means identify bottleneck in our single market, which hamper, we all know that, transition, like disruption of supply chain, lack of plexiglass in some region, and specific plastics for medical supplies, for example. So we have seen that, and of course, you could be of big help here. Another example is, of course, find collectively green and digital solutions, such as a cluster creating digital platforms to exchange better with their member companies and provide specific digital solutions for making their production processes more resource efficient, or having joint wastewater treatment facilities, for example. And I would like, of course, I will be extremely interested to hear on your view and comment on the role you can play here, and you will be, of course, very welcome in this perspective. The new, one word on the new EU multi-annual financial framework, our famous MFF, in full support of recovery towards, again, a greener and more digitally. Just to remind you that the total financing firepower of the EU will be, for the next 7 years, 1,850 billion euro, with, of course, combining both Next Generation EU, which is the program that we present, the Commission is presenting to cope with, of course, the direct impact of the crisis, which is called Next Generation EU, as we know, and for an amount of 750 billion euros, 500 mainly billion in grants, and 250 mainly in loans to member states at very specific and interesting rates. Of course, the crisis has accelerated the transformation towards a green, digital, and resilient economy, and we need, for this purpose, collective actions, cooperation, and strong partnership. And this is definitely what clusters are all about. And you know, of course, this extremely well, because this is the essence of what you have done through this extremely important cluster approach. Now, to help you working together, I just wanted to announce that I will launch Euroclusters, joint clusters initiatives, in 2021 with 15 million euros budget, helping to link ecosystems, as innovation often occurs in cross-sectorial projects. So this will be, again, a tool for us and for you to be able to work and to link, I will say, the cluster and the industrial ecosystems. And I hope that this cluster partnership will develop ecosystem interlinkage within the whole single market with a broad variety of actors, of course, small entities in social economy and large firms in traditional sectors. So I don't want to be too long because, of course, I will be extremely interested to hear to what you have to say to me. But in conclusion and in a nutshell, definitely I'm here to tell you first, thank you. You played a very important role. Secondly, we will work together because our approach is like in a matrix, so it fits perfectly well. And third, of course, definitely yes, we need to work together, and cluster is absolutely essential to accelerate the transformation that we are putting in place on our continent, our European continent, and make this transformation real, regardless where business is located in the EU. We all know that. We learn even more better during the crisis. For me, one of the most important lessons learned, we all knew that, of course, but probably much more understood now by a lot of our European fellow citizens. None of us can do it alone, and that's also my message here. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to working together, and of course, to listen to what you have to tell me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Breton, for such welcoming and inspiring words. Thank you very much for the appreciation of our work. And thank you for the good news you just mentioned and introduced. I'm sure that later on during the dialogue session, we will get back on that, and there will be questions on that. Today's program covers a wide range of interesting aspects related to the role of clusters, including examples of best practices of collaboration as well as proposals on European recovery package. Now it's my privilege to invite to this virtual stage the President of the European Cluster Alliance and Managing Director of Cluster IDEA from Spain, Mr. Antonio Novo, for a brief presentation of European Cluster Alliance. Antonio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Teodora. Dear Commissioner Breton, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us the honor and opportunity to have this open dialogue with you, and also reconfirm that we are totally aligned with what you have just said. So we are the growing alliance of national cluster associations with 740 clusters across the European Union, which gather over 100,000 businesses, universities, and research centers. Originally, clusters were defined as regional organizations, but we have grown, answering the needs and demands of our members. To better compete in a global economy, as you say, they really need a European dimension. So I am glad to hear that you are going to help us to grow those Euro clusters. That's excellent news. This is how the European Cluster Alliance was born, as the coordinated efforts of the European national and regional networks of clusters to create effective and highly competitive transnational innovative ecosystems. In March, as you said, we all were hit by the COVID-19, and our members request us to act immediately. They act, and we were just the coordination body for their activity. And I need to say that it was very, very good, the capacity of DigiGrow to link with us, to answer us, to support our needs, and also to translate your needs to our companies, okay? And that was what made possible what you have just said, the excellent example of how together in a real public private relationships, we were able to create a strong movement of our economy, of our members, in helping in the fight against COVID. Okay. In a moment where all the European members were closing their physical borders, we were able to overcome all the borders, all the barriers. Up to now, if you can go to the next slide, please. Up to now, we have been able to make something like 100 sessions. Next, please. 100 sessions, and join in their efforts 700 different experts. Next, please. And 4,000 attendants in our meetings. That's an impressive number of different resources across Europe coordinated in those efforts, okay? On March 16th, we received, as you said, the request from DigiGrow to make a database of all the critical resources on 3D printing, advanced style, and other capacities across our members. And we put that at your disposal. We split the request immediately to all our European network. In just 4 days, you have that database. And I want to give you another examples of what we were able to do, okay? On Thursday, April the 2nd, Stefan Berin from the Euromaterial Cluster shared with the group the publication by the French government of a specific regulation for the manufacture of masks for the general population. Based on this information, and thanks to the active collaboration during the weekend of the French Association of Pôles de Compétitivité, we managed to get the Spanish government to announce the authorization of that French regulation in just 4 working days. A clear example of urgent translation of the best practice came in from France of great benefit to the population. Summarizing, we don't fear disruptions, we adapt to them, even create them when needed. We make things happen in a coordinated way, extending the effects of the changes and adaptation triggered at central level across all our countries. We want to further work on reinforcing the European leadership. We will inform about disruptions in the European value chains and industrial ecosystems. We want to find best possible solutions to make EU industrial ecosystems strong, resilient, green, digital, as you said. We will identify critical companies with high tech, critical know-how, production or technologies, and help you to protect them. We will work with you for a social, circular, competitive, and sovereign Europe. Today, we want to show the critical role cluster needs to play in European industrial strategy as cluster create and promote the links between different actors, making them adaptable, flexible, stronger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your statement.
Thank you, Antonio. It's for me, I have to say that it's a great honor for me to be part of the European Cluster Alliance. And I'm thankful for the given opportunity to moderate this session. To continue with the program, let's welcome Ms. Ilaria Massari, the General Manager of Industria Innovazione, the local development agency active in Cremona, Provence, Lombardy region, Italy. Ilaria will present how clusters are powering recovery and resilience nowadays. Welcome, Ilaria. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear Commissioner, and thank you for this great chance. Reindustria Innovazione is a local development agency based in Cremona, Lombardy region, born 25 years ago because of the reindustrialization of a huge Olivetti settlement, and today working with clusters, especially in agro-food, cosmetic clusters, and smart manufacturing. Next, please. In order for the European recovery plan to be successful and to effectively implement the 3 pillars, there's the need to quickly define new roles at any level, ensuring effectiveness and flexibility. And the key question is, how can we reorganize and be prepared for new disruptions to come, investing in resilience instead of creating new resistance? It is essential to have a superfluid collaboration, and this is only possible through clusters. I will tell you why clusters make the difference and can play an essential role in the framework of the recovery process. Next, please. Let's think about isolation and the word of top-down identification of competencies and no alignment between institutions and companies, a word without communicating vessels. Next, please. We are really lucky. We have existing clusters. We do not have to create them. They exist, they are. We may be very short-sighted not to use them or living without considering their presence, wasting all of their energy. Next, please. With the arrival of the COVID-19 crisis, the fear, the bottlenecks, the border closure, clusters' reaction at EU level has been incredible. Next, please. A collective mobilization with the quick identification of disruptions and the creation of the European Rapid Alert Function, led by European Cluster Alliance together with the European Commission, not as a temporary solution, but as a constant framework day by day destined to evidence problems and in regulation, coordination and funding needs, and all of the consequent actions as one of the main innovation in public policy never implemented. And I'd like to thank you, European Commission, for this. In the next slide, there is only an example of the Open Innovation Network implemented in 1 month, thanks to the advanced material clusters and packaging clusters, 3D printers, reacting on the shortage of masks, gowns, and other components, trying together to overcome barriers of homologation, certification, a race against time, overcoming the disruption of the closure of the internal market. Next, please. I want to say that cluster managers are professionals, excellent managers with speed of reaction and the capacity to drive sustainability, balancing interests and of different stakeholders at stake. Clusters have the ability to respond as quickly as physically possible to what the industry needs to face now. Next, please. Clusters are business generator. They are magnets for talent and investors. They are the best investment environment where business accelerates. We can say that clusters are now the real resilience we can now offer to investors, are the best tool to promote internationally European ecosystem and to recover reputation of our industries on the global markets. Next, please. Clusters even help regional authorities to build smart specialization strategies, investing in new industrial value chains. Next, please. But they need recognition. How can European industries compete internationally without being recognized and suffer with weak image? For example, in Lombardia, the cosmetic cluster is not recognized yet, and this can be a really loss for the entire European cosmetic value chain. Next, please. So how do clusters do all these things? By taking the lead in daily life, because because of the shared leadership between all the actors, strongly driven by clusters. And we can say that bottom-up energy can overcome any barriers. Next, please. But instead of trying understanding why we should go this way, why not? Why not clusters? What reason do we still have to waste time? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ilaria. Later, during the second part of the event and open dialogue, I believe we will have an opportunity to hear even more on that important topic. Now I would like to bring your attention to our next speaker, Mr. Athanasios Konstantopoulos. It is really hard to present Athanasios with just few words. He is a specialist in nanoparticle technologies, sustainable mobility, clean energy, circular economy, and biotech applications. He is an author of numerous publications and director and founder of the Aerosol and Particle Technology Laboratory at CERT. We will hear from Mr. Konstantopoulos about the role of clusters on the European industrial ecosystems.
Good afternoon, dear Commissioner and colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to present this talk to you. I think in order to understand the role of clusters in the European industrial ecosystems, an evolutionary perspective is actually helpful. In the first stage, individuals, innovators, inventors, other founders, they form the first cells, what I term islands of excellence, where industrial production was set in motion. Eventually, at the next evolutionary stage, these cells, they started to form industrial value chains, what we today call ecosystems, that are driven mainly by specialization, whereby they are able to produce, transform, assemble various components into final products. With the emergence of global challenges as well as opportunities, increased competition, but also opportunity for collaboration, then a third stage emerged, what we term co-evolving ecosystems. These are systems that are driven by synergy. They also include all previous drivers of individuality and specialization, but at the same time, the various levels of network connections that exist, they unleash new opportunities and potential for growth, which, however, under the right circumstances, they also create vulnerabilities, leading to disruptions like the one that we have seen caused by COVID-19. Central into this system is the notion of a keystone species. Keystone species are species that help define the entire ecosystem. Without the keystone species, ecosystems would be dramatically different or would cease to exist altogether. Next slide, please. Therefore, I come to the thesis that clusters form the backbone of industrial ecosystems. And let me qualify it. Actually, clusters have predated industrial ecosystems. From the early Athenian ceramic workshops through the Middle Age guilds of artisans and merchants, clusters evolved, and today they form this backbone. The European Cluster Alliance itself hosts under its umbrella more than 700 clusters, and they bring together a diverse group of innovative business collaborating with universities, research centers, and public institutions. Next slide, please. Clusters, with this capacity, they create new opportunities for an innovative and competitive Europe. They foster industrial symbiosis, sector coupling, and circular economy approaches, and they support directly the European Recovery Plan and its associated pillars, namely the European Green Deal and the digital transformation. Next, please. In particular, through the facilitation of a unified view of raw materials, we can promote local sourcing. We can also support scaling up and capacity building for SMEs by introducing edge manufacturing, modularity, and distributed processing. At the same time, we can identify and exploit any latent potential and criticalities that exist. I remind to all that these are the essence of smart specialization. Finally, we can also promote technologies for smart communities, addressing synergies and trade-offs, and lead to multidimensional impacts for the society, the economy, the environment, and the overall well-being of the European citizen. Next, please. What is then the role of clusters in industrial ecosystems? How can we improve the much sought-after resilience of the industrial ecosystem, both in times of crisis like the one we are discussing and we are facing now, but also for the future, as our society advances, and all this will be just a bad memory. My thesis is that resilience is a network property, not a property of the individual node. Nobody can be resilient by itself. It becomes resilient by being part of the proper network. As a chemical engineer, I would like to use the language of my profession to describe these multiple functions that clusters assume within a network. First of all, clusters serve as sensors because they include a large number of various SMEs, various players, various actors, various areas that can respond fast to the challenges that the resource nexus, including energy, environment, food, and health presents, but also they act as sensors to societal and economic issues. Secondly, clusters also can serve as catalysts because they facilitate knowledge sharing and cross-sectorial, cross-regional synergies. Finally, clusters operate as reactors by helping to develop innovative solutions for common problems and challenges by pulling together collective resources. Therefore, the role of clusters is that of keystone species that support critical functions of the industrial ecosystem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Athanasios. Dear Commissioner, dear partners and colleagues, as it has been announced earlier, we have planned within the program today presentation of best practices of collaboration. Now we are going to explore two project examples. And why we have chosen those two projects? We heard Ilaria saying clusters are side by side to companies and their needs. We just heard Athanasios defining clusters being sensors of the ecosystems, being catalysts and their reactors. The two projects to be presented now demonstrate not only the successful collaboration model, but the added value to the SMEs and how clusters build the bridges across sectors. The first project, IoT for Industry, will be presented by Ms. Marielle Campanel, who is Head of European Projects at Pôle de Compétitivité, SCS France. Welcome, Marielle, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Dear Commissioner, dear participants, so thank you for this opportunity to exchange on the roles of clusters on the European industrial ecosystems. So SCS, meaning Secured Communicating Solutions, is a French competitiveness cluster based in the region Sud and is animating a world-class ecosystem in the field of digital technologies, in particular microelectronics, IoT, big data and artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. The role of clusters in digitalizing the industrial ecosystems is essential. So thanks to cross-border and cross-sectoral collaboration between ICT clusters and industrial clusters, we can provide efficient support to companies by developing the access to smarter means of production and to modernize their processes and security. Matching on one side digitalization demands with technological offers will be actually the role of digital innovation hubs, and the digital clusters can naturally take this position thanks to the state-of-the-art solutions of the ecosystem and their long track experience in matchmaking activities. So today I am presenting an example of how clusters can support in a very efficient way the ecosystems by accelerating the relations between key actors in the value chain. Next slide, please. The InnoSup One program, as part of Horizon 2020, is based on the principle of cascade funding and relies on the ability of clusters to quickly mobilize and connect qualified SMEs from different sectors to create new value chains and access to the market and therefore become more competitive. So SCS is the leader of one InnoSup One project called IoT for Industry, which focuses on the Industry 4.0 value chain, so namely the integration of IoT technologies such as sensors, communication technologies, data analytics, cybersecurity into machines, tools, and industrial applications. So this process of open calls, which is managed by clusters, is very adapted and very appreciated by the European companies because it is very close to the market. It is also agile, fast, and accessible because there is usually high success rate and light reporting for the companies. And most importantly, the role of clusters in mobilizing and supporting companies all along the innovation process is a real added value for the SMEs. As you can see on next slide, IoT for Industry consists of 7 clusters from France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, and the UK. 3 of them are from digital sector, like SCS, and 4 are from the industrial sectors, including another French Pôle de Compétitivité SIM. It will run till the end of this year. So as a consortium of clusters, we have generated with 5 million euros and in less than 2 years, 40 projects, of which 95% of them are close to the market with their prototypes or demonstrators, and involving 112 entities and representing 20 industrial sectors. Let me give you just quickly one concrete example of these projects. One of them, based on technology integration, gathered 2 SMEs and 1 large enterprise, supported by a cluster, and focused on retrofitting all rollings, bearings of a paper production factory with wireless sensors able to predict breakdowns, saving a lot of time and money with the new predictive maintenance tools. Here it is also in the core activities of clusters to animate, to disseminate and accelerate the deployment of such solutions within other sectors. It's important to say that large companies are also fully part of the ecosystem and have also been involved in the funded projects. The role of clusters here has been really clearly to bridge the gap and to connect these promising SMEs with large companies for the deployment of experiments and therefore business relationships. So finally, we can say that clusters have been fundamental in achieving these results in terms of efficiency as an agile and cross-sectoral partnership of European clusters, and also in terms of professionalism and quality. We, as clusters, have been able to reach out qualified companies with the state-of-the-art technologies because we know the ecosystems. It's actually our daily job. So in conclusion, through this example, which shows the relevance of clusters to participate to the European Recovery Plan of 14 ecosystems, we strongly encourage to consider clusters as an essential pipeline for channeling innovation investments toward the ecosystems in the future European industrial and innovation policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Marielle. That is for sure an outstanding example of collaboration and real added value to the SMEs. We will continue with the second project example named Mind the Gap, which will be presented by Ms. Kristiina Jokelainen from Finland, founder of Smart North. It is important to highlight that during her working career, Kristiina has been involved in over 400 international EU projects. The mic is yours, Kristiina.
Thank you. Dear Commissioner Breton, colleagues and participants, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to introduce the Mind the Gap Innosub One project, which is the delivery of the systematic interregional collaboration aiming to develop world-leading sustainable practices to extract and refine raw materials. Green Deal, the transition toward the climate-neutral sustainable EU economy, is resource-intensive and strongly depends on the availability of the raw materials, particularly of the critical raw materials. Today, EU own production is 20-25%, and 62% is imported from China. Securing a sustainable supply of the metals and minerals is vital to meet EU energy and climate targets for 2030. It is expected that EU demand for raw materials will double by 2050. At the same time, when the effort is put into development of the circular economy, such as recycling and urban mining system, or expanding the use of secondary materials, the primary production, mining, will remain its importance still many decades to come. Therefore, it's essential to all of us to understand that we have to do and remain that activities. So, investing in environmentally sound critical raw material exploration and production in the EU supported with a dedicated investment and model and practices. We have to emphasize on the development of the sustainable and transparent supply chains as well. And we have to join the forces to minimize the environmental impact and risk of the mining activities. Next slide, please. As we all know, the mines are very much place-based and cannot be moved. And therefore, all circular economy operations, we must start from the very beginning of every industrial value and supply chains. If we take, for example, the case of Finland, that in Finland, 96% of the waste is industrial waste. So we can't concentrate only at the end of the value or supply chains. That will bind the regions as an operational starting point of these chains. Regional ecosystems are the focal points in the development of sustainable raw material production. They provide the playground where the clusters are the central players. 2014, Lapland, North Karelia from Finland, and Castilla y León from Spain initiated European Mining Regions Collaboration. Currently, we have altogether 25 mining regions, 40 regional clusters, research, development, and innovation organizations, and international partners in this collaboration. We have used Interreg Europe, Horizon 2020, and regional projects supported with the industrial modernization thematic partnerships to implement and to strengthen this partnership. As a main result of this, it has encouraged the regional clusters to take the facilitator's role in engaging industry and research and development and innovation organizations to work side by side with the industry, the bigger industry, to develop more sustainable mining solutions and industrial circular economy. As the next stage in this interregional collaboration, we decided to apply Innosub Fund. Next slide, please. With the lead of ICAP-SIL from Castilla y León and Spain, together with the 11 EU partners, the Innosub One project Mind the Gap was developed 2019. Aim was to join the forces of the clusters and associations, particularly in the materials, mining sector and the provider sector. Project will have its kickoff meeting during the coming months. So what is Mind the Gap is aiming? Like any Innosub project, it is supporting the SMEs and different funding systems. But in this case, we are particularly concentrating to upgrade the SME competitiveness as industrial service providers, to manage industrial symbiosis, and to develop circular economy solutions. To strengthen the regional and interregional business hubs, to recognize the social and industrial related value chains with necessary elements to improve. Mind the Gap is engaging the regional clusters to join the forces and knowledge bases to develop the cross-sectorial value chains. The objective is to create a more permanent EU-level operating environment, assisting in the sustainable critical raw material production. Mind the Gap is supporting new investments and jobs, contributing to sustainability, resource efficiency, and industrial modernization. That creates a solid breeding ground for the emerging industry to grow. The future EU needs Mind the Gap and associated projects to develop competitive and sustainable industrial ecosystems. We have made a good start, but we are still far too far away from the target. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I believe all attendees today will agree that the project reflects not only the successful collaboration between the partners, but the added value in the mining sector. It's my pleasure to announce our next presenter, Mr. Krzysztof Krystowski. Krzysztof is the Vice President of the European Cluster Alliance and President of the Polish Cluster Association. During his career, he was a Deputy Minister of the Polish Ministry of Economy. Krzysztof will summarize what have been addressed so far and outline the proposals on the European Recovery Package. Krzysztof, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, I would like to thank Commissioner Breton for his time devoted to our meeting. It is not only a big privilege for us, but also, let me say, a great success of our European Cluster Alliance, which we established just late last year, for the better coordination of clusters cooperation. But we didn't predict at this time that our resilience will be tested so soon by COVID. What have we just heard about clusters? First of all, clusters are not a lobbying organizations, not representatives of employers trying to influence some regulations. No, we are practitioners doing business with companies hand in glove. We link over 120,000 companies in Europe, employing around 20% population of European Union. So clusters are probably the most efficient form of supporting companies, including SMEs. Because we are just physically close to companies, we are flexible, cheap, and agile organizations. Clusters represents all sectors of European economy, but we are not strictly sectoral. Due to our network nature, we jointly run many cross-sectoral projects between companies and researchers from various member states of the European Union. So we can call us the most pro-European movement in the economic sphere. Clusters are the best tool for integrating science with the economy, operating not only at the interface of these two societies, but incorporating these groups inside our movement. Gathering companies most innovative and the most globally oriented, this is a really great force, which was, in our opinion, used till now, much below our capacities. We have proved during COVID-19 crisis, it was noticed by Commissioner, that we can manage big groups of companies from different sectors at the same time and different countries to help in health crisis, but also to look for ways of recovery. So now it is a time for clusters to become responsible for implementing industrial policy of the European Union. It could be green economy, it could be digitalization, 4.0 industry, drones, but even European aerospace and defense sector. Why not? We want to be a partner of the Commission, almost on the same level like big corporations. We clusters should be part of the new EU Next Generation plan as a kind of hubs for most innovative companies, including SMEs. We would like to manage programs using cascade funding that integrate sectors, entrepreneurs, and science. We understand that European Commission will is to address public money to exactly the places where they will be multiplied by the partnership with private money and generate private investments. We can support this process because we are close to 100,000 of companies. So we are open for the program of joint cluster initiatives, which was mentioned by DG Growth, but take into account new circumstances and the next generation strategy, these cluster initiatives, in our opinion, should be much bigger and much more financed than originally planned. It was said that the budget for these initiatives will be between 150 to 300 million euro for 10 or 20 different initiatives. So let's assume that this is about 15 million per one project, 2 million yearly. What it is in comparison with big programs which are realized by European Union. For example, JTI Clean Sky for European aerospace industry is 1.5 billion euro support from European Union. So maybe this is a time to say, okay, maybe those joint cluster initiatives budget should exceed 1 billion euro. Please, Commissioner, give us more responsibility, give us more trust, and then we can achieve more for Europe. Finally, we would like support you, Commissioner Breton, with all areas of intervention you consider as the most important for more competitive and more independent European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph, for this great input and summary. Dear Commissioner Breton, the entire clusters community is looking to hear your thoughts and feedback of what have been done and presented so far. It is my pleasure to give you the microphone. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and you don't mind, Christoph, if I call you Christoph?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Christoph. Don't worry, I will do my best, and I will share a little secret with you. In 1993, sorry to speak about myself, I wrote a book with a good friend of mine. He was at that time the CEO of Air France. His name was Christian Blanc, and I was the CEO of Honeywell Bull, which was a computer company. And we wrote a book saying that we need to organize ourselves now in pôle de compétitivité, cluster. I think that it was one of the first books, if not the first one, to decide how to organize ourselves, to specify in specific location, to have everyone working with under the same umbrella, universities, research centers, SMEs, big companies. So when I saw that you proposed me to have this meeting with you, I was thrilled because I think that I'm pretty well positioned to understand exactly what you do. Now, even if my dream, I never could have imagined that one day I will be able to speak on cluster together with you 25 years later. So don't worry, I really understand what you are doing, and I'm with you. And I'm impressed, by the way, by the dynamics and your enthusiasm, because I think it's a fantastic tool. It's true to put all actors, all players together, and also to organize the governance between big companies, small companies, startups, research centers on the local ground. And by the way, when I imagined that with my friend Christian Blanc, it was then 27 years ago, I had no ideas that thanks to digital, we could then move from a local organization to a more global cross-border organization, which is, by the way, what I am in charge now within the whole internal market. And I think it's probably a good thinking for you, how, again, to use this fantastic tool that you have built year after year over the past 25 years, which is now a strength of Europe, a strength of our people working together, and of course of competitivity and creativity, to link it, and to be able to benefit from the internal market. Because of course, you cluster are putting people together in the same environment, let's say physical. So let's move from a physical cluster to a digital cluster. And that's maybe something that you maybe think about. And that's where we could work together, because at the end of the day, this is where we can meet now the concept of industrial ecosystem. But at the end of the day, an industrial ecosystem is something which is a concept. And clusters are in the physical world. So let's apply the cluster to make our industrial ecosystem live, using, of course, all the digital technologies and information technologies to do this. That's maybe my first advice, or let's say recommendation. You said you need to use me. This is where I need you to have, in other words, a bridge between the concept and the local ground where you are deeply rooted. So that's, of course, something very important, and especially in this very time, where, of course, we need, and you were right, and you all were right. And by the way, it was very inspiring to listen to everything you said, all the examples that you gave, and I love concrete examples, especially not for everyone, but I love Christina with everything in raw material. I love, of course, Marielle for digital. This is because this is reality. But of course, now what we need in this very time, where we all played a role during the crisis, now to be able to benefit from the big impulse we want to give, I want to give to our continent, using the recovery plan that we are working on now at the level of the Commission, with a lot of money at stake. 500 billion euros. Of course, this crisis hopefully will be once in a lifetime and maybe once in a century. But let's see, if I may say so, even if I'm very cautious while saying this, because of course the crisis is not over. We know that. We are still coping with the virus. But still, let's try to be positive, because you are all positive. We are all positive. We are all entrepreneurs, and I am an entrepreneur too, and you know that. So let's try to be positive. We're working extremely hard at the level of the Commission with the President Ursula von der Leyen and my colleague to be able to have an unprecedented amount of money. And then let's focus this to rebuild our continent, to accelerate towards more digital, more green, and of course, more resilient industry. And this is where, of course, since you already exist, I think this is like, or you represent like the pillars of the bridge I'm willing to build across all the internal market. Let's, if I have an advice to you, let's work in all of your member states immediately with your member state, because each and single member state will have to present to us their own recovery plan, hopefully in fall. So I push to get it by October. And of course, here you have you must play the role, because you represent the vibrant economical sector per cluster. And of course, you must be part of the recovery plan. So I will, of course, refer to this discussion in my contact with ministers from member states, both in economy and industry, to say, of course, that at the level of member state, you need one way or the other be part of the recovery plans that every single member state is working on now, and hopefully now, because we are all pushing them, but I'm pushing them hard. And of course, then we will be able to provide the right amount of money when all these plans will be presented to us during Q3 or Q4, probably as the last quarter of this year, hopefully. And of course, then being able to benefit, and especially for the development part and of the fund that we will attribute to every single member state, and that you will be able to benefit to enhance again a more digital and green clusters. And that's why, again, I think it will be probably inspiring for many member states that you are playing a big role here. But I will, of course, be definitely your advocate in this direction. So that's basically what I wanted to say. Congratulations! I'm very impressed. I did not realize that your association was so important. So I'm impressed. By the way, don't try to buy my book, because I think you will not be able to find, maybe on Amazon, but I don't know. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and really looking forward to see you very soon. And congratulations. But I don't know if we have time for questions. I think it's already the hour is already off. So I'm afraid that we use our time. So I give you back, Theodora, the mic as a master of ceremony to say what we have to do now. But thank you very much.
Maybe for some conclusion.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. It was really inspiring. Thank you for the advices. I'm sure that we will be staying closer, and we will be a huge part of the recovery plan. Yes, we value your time, so I will give now the microphone for the closing remarks to Mr. Jean-Luc Bellard, the President of the French Association for Competitiveness Clusters. Jean-Luc, the mic is yours.
Thanks a lot. I will be short because a lot has been already said. And thanks for my European colleagues for the different clusters in Europe. So it's really impressive to see this power. And thanks a lot for the Commissioner Thierry Breton. He knows very well the pole de competitivity, not only for the first book with Christian Blanc, but actively during the year after on different ways. Maybe if what I would like to say as a conclusion, it's really a momentum for innovation in Europe, not only at this pandemic, not only for the Green Deal, but for the societal and economical transformation. So innovation is very critical. So the new strategy for European Commission structure around ecosystem is very powerful in order to launch, to leverage the economy, and to have a clear strategy about sovereignty. So it's a key element. But in fact, reinventing services industry means to think sometime outside the former logic of this ecosystem. So it's why the impact of digital, climate, sovereignty shows the importance of what we call the system approach. For example, if we think the future of automotive industry is not only with the automotive players, we need to add also the data dimension, the climate impact, and it's where there is a strong value of the cluster. So it's what we have experienced in France with the pole de competitivity. We are able now to have 10,000 enterprises connected to the 50 cluster pole de competitivity in France in order really to open new areas. And maybe one word of the conclusion that I could say that when you innovate, you need to create a market. It is always a challenge for European innovator. What is a market if we compare to US and China? And with this strategy, based on common pillar, we could create really an internal market. And I think it's a strong value of the strategies that you propose, Mr. Commissioner, based on both the ecosystem and the connection with the cluster. And I think personally that it's a huge opportunity to really deliver something. And it's where I think it's also very important, like Christophe said, that we reinforce the value of the connection between the different European clusters in order, in addition to the different steps, to impact and to create a new European market, which is key for innovators to develop their business. Just to be short in a few minutes. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you, et merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bella.
Thank you.
Et j'apprécie beaucoup ce que vous faites par ailleurs, c'est très important.
Merci beaucoup, merci
dans
à
le
vous.
secteur des télécoms.
Merci.
Dear Commissioner Breton, dear speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your contributions today and active involvement. We will keep this dialogue open and we will welcome comments and further suggestions from all clusters across Europe and beyond. You will find on the screen details about the recording as well as contacts for the European Cluster Alliance. Follow the ECCP, follow us on social media, stay safe and stay connected, collaborate. Thank you very much to all.
Thank you very much and good luck and looking forward to see you all soon. And thank you for everything you do. Bye-bye.
Merci beaucoup, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.